You can buy the wrong fund for 20 years and still wonder why your returns felt smaller, your fees felt invisible, and your investing always seemed more complicated than it needed to be. Today I am breaking down 4 names people hear constantly: index funds, mutual funds, hedge funds, and ETFs, and I am doing it in plain English so the differences finally click. Because these names sound similar, many investors assume they do basically the same job. They do not. One choice can mean lower costs, broader diversification, and fewer mistakes. Another can mean friction. That friction is what quietly drains confidence. It shows up in fees, bad expectations, unnecessary trading, confusing pricing, and buying something built for a completely different kind of investor than you. In this video, I will show you what a fund actually is, how each type works, how trades happen, what fees usually look like, who each option fits, and where people get fooled. More important, I will show you why 2 funds can hold similar investments and still behave differently once real money is involved, especially when timing, access, and fees start changing your outcome. And there is one category in this list that many beginners talk about with total confidence, while quietly mixing it up with another. That confusion alone can send people into the wrong strategy. My name is Dave, and if this kind of practical money information helps you, like the video, subscribe, and share it with friends and family groups, because important financial information should travel fast. Let us start with the basic idea. A fund is simply a pool of money collected from many investors and managed according to a specific plan, structure, and set of rules. Think about 5 neighbors who want to build a small community garden. Instead of each buying every tool, every seed, and every bag of soil alone, they combine money and buy together. That is the core idea behind funds. Instead of buying every stock, bond, or other asset one by one, investors put money into a shared vehicle that owns them together. You do not directly manage every piece inside the basket. You own shares of the basket. Your result depends on what the basket holds, how it is run, and what it costs. Now let us move to index funds, because this is where a huge number of long-term investors begin, and for good reason. Index funds are built to follow a market index. An index is like a measuring list. It is not an investment you buy directly. It is a benchmark made to represent part of the market, such as large US companies. The S&P 500 tracks 500 leading US companies and covers about 80% of available US market capitalization, which is why it is often used as a broad market gauge. An index fund does not wake up every morning trying to guess which stock will be next year's superstar. It simply aims to mirror the index it was designed to track. That is why people call it passive. The fund is not paying a team to constantly search for hidden winners. It follows rules, rebalances when needed, and stays close to its benchmark. Because there is less active decision-making, costs are usually lower. Vanguard says its average index, ETF, and mutual fund expense ratio is 0.04%, while the industry average is 0.17%. Let me make that feel real. Suppose Mia invests $10,000 in a broad index fund with a 0.05% annual expense ratio. Her annual fund cost is about $5. If another option charges 1%, that same $10,000 creates about $100 in annual expenses, before you even start talking about performance differences or taxes. Now imagine that gap across 20 years, with regular contributions and compounding. Small percentages look harmless on day one, but over time they behave like a leak you barely notice until much later. The SEC keeps warning investors that fees and expenses, even when they look small, can have a major impact on long-term portfolio value. That is one major reason index funds became so popular. They offer simplicity, diversification, and very low maintenance for investors who do not want to spend their weekends analyzing earnings calls. Another reason is behavioral. People often hurt returns by making emotional decisions. A plain index fund removes a lot of temptation because the strategy is boring by design, and boring can be powerful. Instead of asking which stock will double, the investor asks a calmer question. Do I want long-term exposure to a broad slice of the market at a low cost? That mindset shift matters. It moves your attention away from prediction and toward participation. You are not trying to outguess the entire market every week. You are building ownership over time. Index funds also come in many versions. Some follow large companies, some small companies, some international stocks, some total bond markets, and some narrow sectors like healthcare, utilities, or technology. So yes, passive does not mean identical. You still need to check what index the fund follows, how concentrated it is, whether it holds US stocks, foreign stocks, bonds, or something narrower. Now here is a detail beginners miss. Traditional mutual fund-style index funds do not trade all day like stocks. They are priced once daily using net asset value, or NAV. FINRA explains that mutual funds calculate NAV once a day when markets close, and purchases and sales for that day are executed at that end-of-day price. So if you place an order in the morning, you are not locking a live market price the way you would with an ordinary stock. You get the NAV calculated later. For long-term investors, that usually is not a problem. But it matters for expectations. If you think you are grabbing a specific intraday dip, a mutual fund-style index fund will not do that. That brings us to mutual funds more broadly. A mutual fund also pools money from many investors, but the key difference is often management style, not the shared basket structure itself. Many mutual funds are actively managed. That means a manager or research team is making ongoing decisions about what to buy, what to sell, when to reduce risk, and where to hunt for opportunity. The pitch sounds compelling. Why settle for average if a skilled manager might beat the market? That promise has attracted investors for decades, especially when a manager has a strong recent track record. But this is where expectations need guardrails. Higher activity usually means higher costs, and higher costs create a taller hurdle. The manager must clear before you see any advantage. ICI reported that by year-end 2024, index funds held 51% of long-term mutual fund and ETF net assets, showing how strongly investors have shifted toward lower-cost indexed options. ICI also reported that in 2024, the asset-weighted average expense ratio for index equity ETFs was 0.14%, while actively managed equity mutual funds averaged 0.63%. That cost gap matters. If Noah invests $50,000, a 0.14% expense ratio is about $70 a year, while 0.63% is about $315. Maybe an active manager earns that difference. Some do in some periods. But the manager has to overcome the higher fee first, then still outperform, and then keep doing it consistently. That is harder than marketing language makes it sound. One good year is not a permanent superpower. Many funds look brilliant during one cycle and ordinary during the next one. Still, mutual funds are not automatically bad. Some investors want active oversight, defensive positioning, target date structures, bond management, or niche exposure that may not be available in the exact format they want elsewhere. For example, a retiree who wants a professionally managed bond portfolio might prefer a specific mutual fund strategy rather than building a ladder of individual bonds alone. That can be reasonable. Here is another subtle point. Some people hear index fund and mutual fund as if they are opposites. That is not quite right. An index fund can be structured as a mutual fund. In other words, one label describes the investment style following an index, and the other label can describe the legal or trading structure. That is one reason beginners get tangled up. So the better question is not mutual fund or index fund. The better question is, what does this fund hold? How is it managed? How does it trade, and what does it cost? Let me give you a simple comparison. Olivia buys an actively managed mutual fund focused on large US companies. Ethan buys a passive index fund tracking the same broad area. Both own baskets of stocks, but Olivia is paying a manager to try to beat the benchmark, while Ethan is paying much less to stay close to the benchmark. If the manager wins by enough after fees, Olivia may come out ahead. If not, Ethan may keep more of the market's return simply by paying less and staying consistent. Now we move into hedge funds, and this is where the tone changes. Hedge funds are not built like everyday products for ordinary investors opening a basic brokerage account. The SEC describes hedge funds as private, unregistered investment funds that pool investor money into securities or other assets. generally for people or institutions meeting sophistication criteria. That alone tells you something important. This is not the standard aisle of the supermarket. It is a private room with higher barriers, more complexity, less transparency, and more strategy freedom. Hedge funds may buy stocks, short stocks, use options, trade currencies, borrow money to amplify positions, or combine several methods at once. The toolbox is wider, and the consequences can be sharper. The word hedge sounds defensive, almost cautious, as if the whole point is protection. Sometimes hedging is part of the approach, but many hedge funds are also chasing returns aggressively. They may bet on price gaps closing, interest rates moving, corporate events unfolding, or market stress creating opportunities. That flexibility can produce strong results, but it can also produce brutal mistakes. Here is the simplest way to think about it. An index fund usually says own the market. A traditional active mutual fund often says beat the benchmark carefully. A hedge fund may say exploit anything. Because of that freedom, hedge funds often come with more complexity, less daily liquidity, higher minimums, and fee structures that feel very different from what ordinary fund investors are used to seeing. The famous version is 2 and 20, meaning a management fee around 2%, plus a performance fee around 20% of gains. Specific terms vary, but the reputation exists for a reason. Picture Lucas placing $100,000 into a hedge fund. A 2% management fee alone is about $2,000 a year before performance fees enter the conversation. If the fund then generates a 10% gain, or roughly $10,000, and takes 20% of profits, another $2,000 may go to fees depending on the structure. That does not mean hedge funds are scams. It means the bar should be high. The strategy has to justify the complexity, the illiquidity, the fee load, and the risk profile. It also means they are not designed for most viewers of this channel. If you are building a retirement account, learning basic diversification, or trying to grow wealth steadily, hedge funds are usually not step one. Another reason is access. The SEC says individuals generally qualify as accredited investors through thresholds such as net worth above $1 million, excluding a primary residence, or income above $200,000 individually. So when people casually mention hedge funds online, it can create the illusion that this is just the advanced version of a normal ETF. It is not. It is a different arena. Now let us talk about ETFs, because this is where many modern investors spend most of their time. ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund, and the trading part matters. An ETF is still a fund. It still holds a basket of assets. But unlike a traditional mutual fund, an ETF trades on an exchange throughout the day like a stock. That means you can see the market price moving in real time, place limit orders, and react during market hours. That flexibility is one major reason ETFs became incredibly popular. ETFs can track the S&P 500, dividend strategies, bond indexes, gold, international stocks, specific sectors, factor strategies, or even narrow themes that sound almost too specific to be real. But flexibility is not always an advantage in practice. For disciplined investors, intraday trading is useful. For impulsive investors, it can become a button that turns long-term plans into constant noise. That is why structure alone never guarantees better results. A simple ETF can be an excellent long-term tool. The same ETF can become a bad experience if someone keeps panic selling every headline. On cost, ETFs are often competitive. Vanguard says its average ETF expense ratio is 0.04%, compared with an industry average of 0.23%. Suppose Ava buys a broad market ETF with a 0.03% expense ratio. On $20,000, her annual expense is about $6. That is almost invisible, which is the point. Of course, not every ETF is that cheap. Some specialized ETFs are more expensive, especially when they follow narrow strategies or use active management. Again, label first, details second, conclusions last. Here is an important overlap. Many ETFs are index funds because they track indexes. Many index funds are not ETFs because they may be structured as mutual funds instead. So when someone says, "I buy index funds," they might be using traditional mutual funds. When someone says, "I buy ETFs," they might also be buying index tracking products. Context matters. Think of the relationship this way. Index is often the strategy. ETF or mutual fund is often the container. If you confuse strategy with container, you miss the real comparison. Let us build a clean four-way picture. Index funds usually aim to track a benchmark, often passively, with low costs and broad diversification. Mutual funds may be passive or active, but many are active. Hedge funds are private, flexible and aggressive, often with higher fees and restricted access. ETFs are exchange-traded baskets that can be passive or active and are bought like stocks throughout the day. If you are a beginner investing for retirement, the practical shortlist is usually index funds and ETFs first, mutual funds second depending on the strategy, and hedge funds far outside your lane. Now let us walk through a simple scenario. Sarah has $10,000 and wants a hands-off long-term investment. She values low fees, diversification, and simplicity more than bragging rights. A low-cost index fund tracking a broad market index could fit her well. A broad ETF tracking the same index could also fit, especially if she wants exchange trading flexibility. James also has $10,000, but he loves the idea of a manager making tactical decisions. He may choose an active mutual fund, but he should measure cost against conviction. If James is paying 6 or 7 times the expense ratio of a broad index option, he needs a serious reason, not a catchy brochure and 3 good quarters. Then there is Ryan, who hears hedge fund and assumes elite means better. That is a dangerous shortcut. Exclusive does not automatically mean appropriate, safer, or superior after fees. Sometimes the best move is not the most sophisticated-looking move. Sometimes the best move is the one you can understand, hold through stress, and fund steadily for the next 20 years. That is a big theme on this channel. Wealth is not just about finding the most exciting vehicle. It is about matching the right tool to the right job. If the job is building broad, long-term ownership with minimal friction, low-cost index funds and broad ETFs deserve serious attention. They remove many of the mistakes people add by hand. If the job is accessing a very specific manager, mandate, or bond process, a mutual fund might make sense. But you still need to inspect the fee, turnover, and purpose. If the job is chasing complex, less liquid, higher-risk strategies with private fund structures, that is the hedge fund world, and most ordinary investors do not need to force that door open. One more trap deserves attention. Investors often compare only past returns, but ignore how those returns were achieved. Was there more risk, more leverage, more concentration, or more cost involved? A fund that outperformed for 3 years by taking larger hidden risks is not automatically better than a simpler fund that compounded quietly with fewer surprises and lower expenses. That is why understanding structure matters. Structure changes behavior, liquidity, pricing, transparency, and temptation. Those features do not look dramatic on day one, but they shape your investing life. So when you hear somebody say, "Just buy a fund," your next question should be, what kind of fund? What does it hold? How is it managed? How does it trade? And what does it cost? Those 5 questions will protect you from a shocking amount of confusion. They turn investing language from fog into something you can actually compare with confidence. For most people trying to build wealth steadily, the winning move is not to sound advanced. The winning move is to stay clear, diversified, low cost, and consistent, while time does the heavy lifting. And that clarity can save you money, save you time, and maybe most importantly, save you from building a long-term plan on top of a misunderstanding that sounded small at first.